As Chris Fowler said, hail, hail to Michigan, champions once again. But can they be champions again? That's what we're here to talk about. We are here to predict the 2024 Michigan football schedule. Before we get cooking into the schedule, some things to note. Michigan, in total returning production this season, is tied 128th at 36%. They are returning 24% of their offense, 47% of their defense. Last season, they had the 14th scoring offense, the 69th total offense in terms of yards. They had the number one scoring defense, the number one total defense in terms of yardage, and they went 15-0, 10-0 in conference play. Coming into the season, they have an over/under of 8.5 wins. Let's get into the schedule, boys.
It's a tough one.
It is a tough schedule. They play, as of now, the preseason 3 of the top 4 teams in college football as it stands right now, which
that's brutal.
Is insane. Luckily, they are home for 2 of them, away for 1 of them. We'll kind of get into those matchups as we go along, as they start the season versus Fresno State. I mean,
that's a W.
Let's be real here, boys. It's
5
it's
straight
a
home games is a little bullshit.
We can't control the Big Ten ones. That's on us, or that's not on us. We do have a home and home with Texas. And a home and home with Oklahoma. So this year we're home against Texas. Next year we're home against Oklahoma, I believe. Then the year after that at Oklahoma, then at Texas. So yeah, fun times. But start the season, Fresno State. It's a nice warm-up game. That's a dub.
I feel like we just disrespected Fresno State, being like,
I'm not-
it's just a warm-up game.
I mean, they're a great group of 5 team, but I think first game back in the big house post championship, I think the stadium will
be bumping. There's going to be
I think the stadium will have more juice than expected for a group of 5 team. So and the defense is still going to be elite this year. When you got pieces like Mason Graham, Cornelius Johnson, Kenneth Grant. So yeah, I think a comfortable win here for Mason Blue. However, Texas comes into town the very next week.
Sorry, that's a loss.
Yeah, I have an L on this one as well. I think Michigan will kind of surprise people. I think it's going to be closer than people will probably expect it to be, but I'm going to go with an L.
Yeah, Quinn Ewers coming back. I don't know, man.
Yeah, I think honestly, I think that might be the difference maker in this game is that Texas has the returning quarterback and Michigan will have an inexperienced quarterback coming into that game. So
I think it's going to be a big factor for Michigan all season, really.
I agree. I have hope for Alex Orji. He has showed flashes the few plays he came in last year. Obviously, I'm assuming Alex Orji gets the start. There's no guarantee in that. Also worth noting, it will be the full first season of Sharon Moore coaching, as he did interim for 4 games last season. That would be, I believe, as the East. No, it was I think it was the Bowling Green game, the Penn State game, the Maryland game, and the Ohio State game last year.
And that was when Jim Harbaugh was on suspension, correct?
Yes. So, yeah.
And it's an orgy in the end zone.
But moving on, week 3, Arkansas State comes to town.
Sorry. It's a loss.
I don't think we'll see Butch Davis crying on the sidelines like he did against Oklahoma last season, but I think it's another easy dub.
No, I think it's a loss, man. I don't think you're ready for Arkansas State, man. I don't think you're ready.
You know, they could surprise us.
Pulling out the classic Colby. Who wins in a fight, a Wolverine or a Red Wolf?
Well, I think they're the Wolf Pack.
They're the Red Wolves.
Red Wolves, stupid.
I think they are the Red Wolves.
Yeah, they are.
Red Wolf is bigger than Wolverine.
And Red Bull gives you wings, so. By that logic.
Well, and going into week 4, we get the first new team in the Big Ten coming to town. Lincoln Riley and the USC Trojans.
Why you
I wanna
gonna
hear
lose
you-
to USC?
Win.
They ain't even got Bronny James no more.
It's a win.
I
USC's about to
agree.
get exposed.
I think USC will get pretty exposed this season, not being able to play
Rocked.
physical football that matters. I don't think their Lincoln Riley's offenses are truly ready for the physical defenses that they're going to see, and their defenses were unless he has a major turnaround, his defenses were always awful. I don't think they'll be able to withstand the ground and pound of the Big Ten that we typically see.
I don't think their offensive line or defensive line is ready for Big Ten play, and I don't think
No.
their receivers are going to take one hit and it's going to be different.
And they are also trying to replace the number 1 overall pick, Caleb Williams. So that's also a tall task within itself.
Yeah, that is tough.
There's a reason they're not ranked in the preseason top 25.
Yeah. You wanted to say something, Samuel?
No.
No? Okay.
I was gonna roast it. I had a roast and I forgot it.
Moving on to week 5, we have Minnesota! Coming to town. PJ Fleck coming back to Michigan, to the state of Michigan.
Fuck PJ Fleck.
Welcome.
Yeah,
Win.
Michigan's-
Fuck PJ Fleck.
Michigan's pretty much always had a grip on this rivalry. I don't think it changes here. Michigan with the dub.
Yeah.
Next up,
Golden Gophers, they might get more.
week 6, Michigan taking their first trip out to Seattle in a rematch of the national championship game at Washington.
That's
Do you
not
Now,
think they'll do
Michigan-
it again?
weird.
If you thought Michigan's roster was depleted and there was low production or return production numbers, Washington's is even worse. They have the lowest number of returning production for the offense. I think they were returning 14% of their offensive
Oh.
numbers.
Yeah, they
Um,
lost everyone pretty much.
And they are
That's
also
wild.
replacing their coaching staff as
Yeah,
Kalen
their whole
DeBoer
coaching staff.
took ship down to Alabama. I think, I think we get a pretty similar game to the national championship. It's kind of close, but Michigan kind of just out physicals
I think they just
Washington.
out returning production though.
I think there's Michigan, the 3 hard games, yes, those are going to be a challenge, but I think what will work out for Michigan is a lot of these games they will be able to kind of what they did with Cade in 2021 and what they did with JJ 2 years ago, and kind of, unless they need to, they can keep the ball out of the quarterback's hands, and it helps that Donovan Edwards is returning. So I think that's what we'll see in a lot of these games. We'll just kind of see Michigan, unless they need to, keep the ball out of their quarterback's hands and not force him to make a mistake. So I think they get a benefit with that in a lot of these games. But then, following the trip out to Seattle, we get a bye week.
I think we
And
lose that
then-
one, guys.
Oh, they lose that one for sure.
L.
To then follow up another road trip out to Champaign, Illinois, to face the Fighting Illini of Illinois.
Can we just point out that there is absolutely no place in Illinois that should be named something nearly as bougie as Champagne?
Dude, hold on, they spelled it way stupid though.
It's
The- yeah.
spelled dumb. But in all fairness, Champagne is Champagna. So
It's spelled right.
and Bologna.
I think this game hinges on
Dude,
if
wait,
Brett
see.
Bielema can have another top tier defense.
Brett Bielema had he kind of captured lightning in a bottle. It seemed like for the 2019 season, the few years before COVID, the 2022 year, he kind of captured lightning in a bottle, and last year kind of seemed to return to form for Illinois. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a little bit of a dogfight for a half, especially considering who Michigan plays the very next week. I could see a little bit of a look ahead. But I still think Michigan gets a dub here.
I think
would
this is going to be their
agree.
one weird loss of the season you just can't explain. It'll just happen.
You know,
Oh,
I
no,
could.
then that one's coming up next week.
you know, it's in a weird spot because the Michigan that I grew up on watching, I would totally expect that. Just that there's a game that you lose and you don't know why or
just
how it
fully
happened.
runs away from you, and you don't
So,
know how you got here.
yep. But the last 3 years, kind of have reversed that, and that's still sitting right there. So I think with the culture that's been built around, I think we're able to avoid those games now for the most part. However, Sparty comes to town the very next week, and Sparty always gives it their
Sparty
best
looks
shot against
Sparty hard.
Michigan,
This is a very new
Except-
look Sparty.
except for
Very
last
new look
season.
Sparty.
But it is, if we thought Michigan was very new look, Michigan State is even more new look. I brought up the Michigan numbers and all that from last season. I'll get more into those for Michigan State when we do the Michigan State schedule preview. But yeah, this is gonna be it's gonna be a garbage game. It's gonna be like a 14-7. No one's gonna enjoy watching this game. I think Michigan does get a win. It's gonna be an
you and Colby will still be on the edges of your seat the entire evening.
oh yeah.
I think each other off.
I think it's gonna be an ugly game all the way around. Not like in the fights or anything like that. I think it's just gonna be an ugly one to
It's
watch.
just gonna be
And
a
I
Big Ten
think
game, bro.
yeah, I think Michigan will. Not to say like I'm not saying Michigan State's gonna be awful. I'm not saying Michigan's gonna be great, but I think it's gonna be a little bit of Michigan State's playing way up to their competition in this one, and it's close and it's ugly.
That might be the nicest thing Zach has ever said about Michigan State.
I've said some nice things.
He said, "I don't think they're gonna look awful."
I personally think Michigan State's gonna win this game, and I'll get more into it when we get into the Michigan State schedule prediction. But granted, with it being a new look team, I think this is a better team than last year. I think it's a more well put together
Sure hope
team
so.
than last year. No,
That's
like
fair
quarterback
enough.
play is gonna be so much better. I promise you, it's gonna be so much better than it was last year.
But then the very next week, another top team in the country, the third new team in the Big Ten. Michigan plays 3 out of the 4 new teams. Just taking note of that. Oregon comes to the Big House.
Y'all gonna
Um,
lose to the Ducks, dog.
Yeah.
I do think we lose to the Ducks here.
Oh, I was kidding.
No, I think
so.
I think we take the second loss of the season to the Ducks.
That mascot too clean, bro.
The mascot is pretty cool.
I'd rep
But
that
it-
with
He
a
said
Corona
that,
shirt,
Lee
but I
said
ain't
I
ever
don't know.
wanna rep a school from Oregon.
Dylan Gabriel
See,
might tear y'all
well,
up.
See, we made fun of USC for not having the physicality and all that, but Dan Lanning basically took the SEC, like
Took
the
Georgia.
philosophy of the SEC in Georgia and brought it to Oregon.
Yeah,
It
they're
didn't
dogs.
it didn't work out. It didn't work out last year for them, unfortunately. I was kind of worried, not gonna lie, watching that Pac-12 championship. I was worried that Michigan was potentially gonna have to play Oregon in the first round of the playoffs. That was probably the team I was worried about the most. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, I think Oregon is gonna have a pretty great year. Probably make the Big Ten championship in their first season. Michigan lost.
Yeah, I do as well.
That's big praise for the Ducks.
I think they gonna be missing Bo Nix. Michigan taking the dub.
You don't know about Dylan Gabriel.
Very next week,
Bo Nix.
I don't have the stats, but Michigan travels to Indiana.
It's a win.
It's a cakewalk win. Michigan has only lost to Indiana one time in the last like.
I was gonna say, what team they play from India?
I-
sure hope
I-
they won.
I think since like ninth, I might be wrong on the year, but it's like the mid '60s. Michigan's only lost to Indiana like twice. So Michigan
That's
dub
hilarious.
here.
Stick to basketball,
Uh,
boys.
Yeah, stick to basketball. Although I'm blanking on the coach's name. He came from Coastal Carolina. He's probably gonna do some things at Indiana, but not like he might like get an 8-win season every once in a while here and there, but not in his first year.
Bro, he ain't special.
Followed that up with a bye week,
Another
heading
loss.
into the heading into the
Hell
last two heading into the last 2 games of the season. Northwestern
The fact
at
that y'all
home.
get
The
2
last
bye weeks before Ohio State is crazy.
every
Some
team gets
crazy
2 bye weeks
scheduling.
this year.
No.
Oh,
it's 2 in a
oh.
row.
Oh, Northwestern. Oh, okay. Technically,
Move up.
3 if you count Indiana. I mean,
Well, they
Imagine not
had
playing a
warm-up
real game
games.
for 3 straight weeks.
Northwestern surprised people last year, but I don't think they have what it takes to quite punch up yet.
They're not even playing
plus,
on a real field.
No, they're not.
I mean, it's in the Big
So
House, but still.
moving on from Northwestern quickly. Last week of the year in Columbus, the game. I think they do it. I think they pull off. I think they pull off the upset. I think there's a little bit too much confidence right now from Ohio State. Unshown confidence from Ohio State right now. They do have a lot of they did and do have a lot of transfers coming in.
That team is so stacked, dude. I don't know.
It
I don't know.
Mentally, where I was going with it is the way that I had Michigan losing to Illinois, just that one random loss you can't explain. Buckeyes fans going into this game so gassed to just watch their team lay a fart in the middle of the field.
And that's the thing. Ohio State's either so I have Michigan coming into this game 9-2, also potentially fighting for their playoff life. Ohio State, I have coming. I haven't done official. I haven't looked at Ohio State's. They're either going to come in with one loss or none. I think Michigan kind of sneaks out a win here, and if Ohio State comes in with a loss, it would be to Oregon. And if that happens, if Michigan wins, then with how I've predicted it out, Michigan would still make an appearance in the Big Ten championship game.
And you've also got to factor in that there's a bye week sandwiched by 2 easier games for Michigan going into this matchup against the Buckeyes. I think that plays a factor in how rested Michigan's players are, how ready they are to go out of the gate. I don't know what Ohio State's schedule looks like.
Purdue, Northwestern, Indiana, Michigan.
So they have a bunch of easy games before.
God. Yeah, okay. So they're both in
it's just gonna be it's gonna be teams coming in off of tune-up games, so
it's going to be
they're gonna be both refreshed.
Yeah, so my personal prediction is 10-2 with one conference loss this year. If you want to switch, if you want to say Michigan pulls the upset against Oregon and loses to Ohio State, I'm fine with that. I might be sipping a little bit too much of the maize and blue Kool-Aid. I think this team is going to surprise more people. I think people are kind of writing this team off because of the quarterback and the lack of like a solid quarterback. When that wasn't what necessarily got Michigan into the spot that they were 3 years ago. No disrespect to Cade McNamara, but I think the defense will carry them in a lot of games and will be able to keep the quarterback play a non-issue for the most part. So I have us going 10-2.
I have 9-3 or
solid.
8-4. You got 3
Yeah,
insanely
I'm in that
hard
same boat.
games and then Michigan State. It's probably more likely 9-3 with maybe beating one of those top 4 teams and then Michigan State spoiling it for you, or Michigan State still spoiling it for you and losing to all 3 top 4 teams. I don't know.
I think
how I see it
personally
going.
9-3. It feels like, yeah, there are a lot of big teams that have a lot stronger rosters, like especially Texas, Oregon, the Buckeyes. Those are the 3 big ones you've got to watch out for. I think they win at least one of those games and then just randomly lose a different one. Like again, Illinois, they'll just find a way to
Yeah.
you know?
I know my prediction is 10-2. I would honestly be fine with the 9-3 year. If it's an 8
It was a respectable season.
If it's an 8-4 year, I will be disappointed. I'm not gonna lie. Just because
I think it's still a success if it's 8-4 though. 7-5, then
deep down it is still a success, but 9-3 with this schedule or 8-4, I get that'd be a losing to those 3 teams: Oregon, Texas, Ohio State, and then you drop a game you probably shouldn't. So that's where the disappointment would come in, is just because you're dropping a game you shouldn't. So yeah, I don't have crazy expectations of, oh, we're gonna go 11-1, we're gonna go undefeated again. I don't think it's in the cards. I would ideally like to get back into the playoffs, maybe win a game, but I don't see Michigan repeating as national champions, unfortunately.
It's hard to do. It's hard as
There-
hell to do,
I
especially
think-
with losing your starting quarterback and a couple key pieces around the roster. It's
Yeah.
hard.
And I also think there's a certain black and red team down in the South that has a lot to say about the national championship race. I heard their fans bark at kids, so.
What?
Oh dear God.
But yeah, that's all I have about my the Michigan schedule and predictions. Any other gentlemen have anything to add to it?
I can't wait to hear the other side of this coin when we talk about Michigan State in a minute.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear Colby's reasoning, but we'll get to that, and you'll have to find out his reasoning in the next episode.
Tune in
We
next
will tune in next time. We will see you then.
Yer.